Wow, a lot has happened since I last talked to you all yesterday. Shortly after I uploaded, or maybe a few hours after I uploaded yesterday's video, we got the news that the FBI had raided Mar-a-Lago. You all know this by now. Trump's personal residence was ransacked by the feds. Trump apparently was not home. He was on his way to a rally for Sarah Palin in Alaska. And we didn't get any information about it directly from the government. It seems that only Trump's statement was how we knew about this. Of course, people were going to see, I'm sure, the FBI folks in front of Mar-a-Lago. It's not exactly like it's a remote location. And the federal government has yet to put out a statement discussing what their goal was here. But plain and simple, we can assume, based off of everything that they've done in the past, that this is yet another witch hunt to try and take down Trump. Now, I'm one of those people who thought, who was very skeptical of Trump when he first came into office, and when there were investigations into him, I thought, you know what, the guy's probably dirty. Trump comes across as a dirty guy to me. There's probably something to this. And then as the Mueller investigation went on, it became more and more clear that, hey, there's nothing here. This was all a joke. I mean, the PP tape stuff, we knew that was, immediately that was obviously, false. And made up. But Dems loved running with that because they love the idea of Trump getting pissed on. But I thought, hey, there's a lot of people working on this thing that, there's probably something that they've got. And I'm right. There's some reason why they're doing all this and spending all these millions of dollars investigating. And it's like, nope. And, it was obvious before the Mueller investigation finished, long before. But at the very beginning, when Trump first became president. And then it turned out, no, they were just trying to take him out and cripple him and make it so that he couldn't pass legislation and so that he couldn't effectively govern. They were just trying to have a scandal hanging over his head at all times. And guess what? As soon as the Mueller investigation was done, well, then they were trying to impeach him over Ukraine-gate. As soon as we got done with Russia-gate, they started Ukraine-gate. And then after that, we got, I think Ukraine-gate ran all the way up until January of 2021, and ever since then we've had January 6th gate, where Trump was plotting to overthrow the federal government and install, a Trumpian Bonapartist, imperial regime with himself as the vaunted monarch and his son Don Jr., as the crown prince. Now the January 6th investigation is wrapping up, and obviously, just like the last two investigations before, it found nothing, as we all expected. They have no way of really indicting Trump. And so this week, we now have a new investigation, totally unrelated, into Donald Trump, apparently getting kicked off with a bang, with them raiding his house. And so cue, CNN anchors coming on and their panel with like 6 people saying the walls are closing in, Trump's days are numbered, the orange man is going to be wearing an orange jumpsuit before long. Rinse and repeat. But this is a little different because this is more invasive. This isn't just them, talking on cable news about, oh my gosh, Trump, might have committed some crime at some point in his life, and then nothing ever coming of it. This time they actually went and invaded his home. They ransacked it. I'm sure they turned his sock drawer upside down, threw all his clothes on the floor, broke into his safe in search for something. In search for what, you might ask? Well, we're told it has something to do with records that were taken from the National Archive, that the National Archives feels were, should be left in the National Archives and shouldn't be a part of, the president's personal records that, are going to become a part of his presidential library, because this happens with every administration. They take a bunch of papers and things, and those get turned into the, the presidential library. And at times when the government thinks, no, you shouldn't have that document, they go and they talk it out, and, the two parties settle things amicably. But this time, they decided to send in the feds to get whatever document that they thought that Trump shouldn't have. Which, last night, Robert Barnes, he theorized, and I'm leaning in this direction. I've heard different theories, but I'm leaning in this direction. This is what makes the most sense to me. That whatever this document is that they are disputing Trump's possession of, or documents, is really embarrassing to somebody within the deep state, and so therefore they couldn't just settle this through typical channels. They had to just go in and get it to make sure that Trump didn't share it with anybody else, and that its contents remain secret. Now, it's just a theory at this point. I'm open to other ideas, but I haven't been able to come up with any better ideas myself, because why else would they need to go there? Now, it could just be absolutely nothing. Trump might not even have any documents that they're interested in. It could just be that they're looking for, a new headline to put on TV to say, oh my gosh, look, Trump was raided by the FBI. And so, we're going to start with our, Russiagate nonsense again. Just to give the media a headline, does that really make sense? Do you think that the FBI would go through all this trouble? Especially when your average Trump supporter is going to look at this and go, wow, look, another witch hunt. They're just trying to persecute him. And, in turn would just boost his popularity, because people will go, look, the FBI is trying to take him down, and that's good publicity for Trump and his base. It shows that, he's not a sellout, that he is an enemy of, bad people. And so it's not like, if you look at this from a political standpoint, that it's beneficial for, let's say, the Democrats to have this happen, because this is only going to, this makes Trump look cool, for lack of a better term. Now, I say that, but just because I know objectively that this would not hurt Trump and would, if anything, help him, perhaps, the Trump derangement syndrome folks don't know that. Perhaps they look at this and they go, wow, we're delegitimizing him even more. People will see, oh, if the FBI goes after him, that, Trump really is a bad guy. Or maybe they thought that they could, disqualify him somehow. They're going to put him under, criminal prosecution, or they'll convict him of something, anything, and that will derail his presidential campaign. But apparently in the past, there have been people who, were convicted felons, or, well, maybe not convicted felons, but people in jail who, have run for president. So honestly, I don't know what this would accomplish. I don't know what going after Trump at this point really has going for them. I think that it will energize his base, and it will, appease the people who already hate him. So either there's two possibilities here. One is that there is another shoe to drop, that they really do have the dirt on him this time, and we just can't see it, and that this is a really, really big deal, and we'll just have to wait, and they're going to unveil that Trump is actually a serial killer. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that these people are just short-sighted. They are deranged, and they can't see that this would be politically negative for them. Oh, and there's the third possibility. I'm sorry. The third possibility is what Barnes came up with, which I think probably makes the most sense at this point, that Trump had some document that was embarrassing to somebody, or documents, and they just really, really couldn't afford to let those documents get out to anywhere. And that Trump, by holding those, he had leverage over them, and they couldn't allow that to happen. Which would make sense. I mean, Trump would have had access to whatever incriminating documents, there exist within, the National Archives. And so maybe he did sneak some of them out. I don't know. But either way, from a political standpoint, I think this only helps. Because the people who are going to look at this story and go, oh my gosh, they're going to be fooled again and go, wow, Trump really is a criminal. Look, the FBI is going after him. The people who think like that in 2022 are not voting for Trump to begin with. They're already going to vote for Joe Biden or whoever the Democrat nominee is going to be. And the people who are inclined to voting for Trump are going to be energized. They're going to go, wow, they really, really want to stop this guy, and we can't let that happen. They're going to be indignant. That's what it's going to do. It's going to embolden them. and it's going to galvanize his support. Oh, and how could I forget? If this wasn't all enough, the federal magistrate who signed off on this search warrant from the Southern District of Florida, he's an ex-Epstein attorney, defense attorney for Epstein Associates, which means he worked closely with the Epstein crew. And prior to that, he was working in the U.S. Attorney's Office, which was prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein and his associates for their child sex ring. So he flipped. This is a man who was bought off by Jeffrey Epstein, who sold out justice, literally. He quit his job as a U.S. attorney to, prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein, to go then and defend the acts of Jeffrey Epstein's, associates, which is indirectly, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was, the big figurehead. I think there were plenty of people above Epstein, namely Les Wexner, but we don't know that for sure, but it's just a theory. I don't want to get sued for defamation like Alex Jones and, be liable to pay, billionaire Les Wexner $50 million in punitive damages. But this guy, I believe his name is Bruce Reinhardt, and I remember his name vaguely from following the Epstein case. And we don't know for sure that he's the one who signed off on the warrant. I want to say that, but he is considered to be he's considered to be the most likely person to have signed off on it. Because these warrants and things, they're sealed, so you don't know exactly who's on whose docket. It's kind of vague, but that is, I believe Politico were the first ones to suggest Bruce Reinhardt was the magistrate or the judge who signed off on this search warrant. And if so, I mean, can you imagine anything more perfect? A judge who was bought and paid for by Epstein signing off on a search warrant to go and ransack Donald Trump's house. Yeah, that's really going to convince Trump supporters or the Trump supporter adjacents in America that the walls are closing in and that Drumpf is finished. No, I think that this event will prove to be pretty great for Trump. And it will do a lot to further delegitimize not only the administrative state, but our whole legal system, especially at the federal level. And delegitimizing the federal government is something that always makes me smile. The federal government is highly illegitimate, and I want as many of my fellow Americans to become aware of that as possible. The FBI is a secret police force, and a free country does not need a secret police. Frankly, I think that this is all the ammunition that any decent Republican needs to run on a platform of abolishing the FBI. And of course, while you're at it, the CIA, the IRS, the ATF, these people exist to make life on this planet difficult or intolerable for either Americans or people abroad, depending on what agency you're talking about. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.